Hey everyone, welcome to this Forge College Explainer. If you've been following along with our Solidity from Zero track, specifically the module on data types, structs, and mappings, you know we are right in the thick of it. In our last lesson, putting data types together and preparing for structs, we bumped into a pretty big realization. Our contract state? Yeah, it's getting a little messy. We've been tossing around uints and bools like a bunch of loose sticky notes on a heavily caffeinated developer's desk. It's just chaotic. So today, in this introduction to structs and arrays, we're going to give you the ultimate filing system for your smart contracts. Welcome to the bureaucracy. So here's the big question we need to answer today. How do we actually organize multiple pieces of related data efficiently on-chain? I mean, we know how to use single primitive data types, right? Your basic numbers, your true or false flags. But how do we keep our smart contracts from becoming a massive pile of disorganized papers when we're tracking complex things? Imagine trying to run a business where every single customer's first name, last name, and account balance are kept on completely separate, unrelated lists. That would be a total nightmare. We definitely need a better way to do this.
All right, here's our game plan for today. First, we'll look beyond primitive data types. Then we'll dive into structs, which are your data records, followed by arrays, your filing cabinets. After that, we'll build a contacts registry together, cover storage mechanics and gas, and finally wrap up with a summary and next steps. Let's jump right into section 1. Beyond primitive data types, taming the chaos.
Previously, you learned how to declare primitives and rely on explicit widths and default values for type safety. But right now, honestly, those primitive types are just loose papers floating around your smart contract. We need a reliable way to organize related data so our functions can actually manage them as a single cohesive unit. You really don't want to pass around 10 different variables into a function just to update one user's profile. That is a fantastic way to lose data and, honestly, your sanity. We have to bundle them into what we call compound state. Moving right along to section 2, structs, your data records, or as I like to think of them, the filled-out form. A struct is incredibly simple conceptually. It's just a composite type in Solidity that lets you package multiple related primitive fields into a single user-defined record. Think of a struct like a blank template for an office form. When you fill it out, it becomes a single record that collects all those related fields, like a person's name, their age, whether their account is active, into one neat, highly organized unit. So here's what that actually looks like in practice. On the left, we're defining a struct called person. We're bundling a string for the name, a uint for the age, and a boolean for their active status. Now, the declaration of the struct itself doesn't allocate any storage on the blockchain. It's literally just the printing of the blank form. But once you declare a state variable of this type, like typing out person public manager, boom, you've officially created a single, tidy record sitting directly on your contract. You filled out the form and placed it right on the desk. All right, section 3, arrays, the filing cabinets. Let's talk about ordered collections. If a struct is a single paper form, an array is the filing cabinet where you place these forms into an ordered sequence of labeled folders. By definition, an array is an ordered collection of elements. And the cool part is, these elements can be anything. They can be primitive types like a list of numbers, or they can be complex structs like a giant stack of our person forms. They're accessed by a numerical zero-based index, meaning the very first folder in your filing cabinet is labeled 0. The next is 1, and so on. Now, when you go out to buy a filing cabinet in Solidity, you basically have two choices. Arrays come in two flavors. Static arrays have a rigid, fixed size that you declare at compile time. Notice that uint 5, that means this cabinet has exactly 5 folders. No more, no less. Dynamic arrays, on the other hand, use empty brackets, like uint earl. These are like magical filing cabinets that can just grow dynamically at runtime. You can keep shoving new folders into them, using operations like push, and the cabinet just expands to fit the whole shebang. Let's compare these two directly. Structs package related fields, and you access those fields using dot notation, like manager.name. Arrays, conversely, hold ordered collections, and you access them using numeric indices, like looking up folder number 5. Struct sizes depend on their internal fields, while array sizes are either fixed or dynamically expanding, so they serve two completely different but highly complementary purposes. Moving to section 4, building a contacts registry, a practical example. Okay, first we design our form. Here is our official contact struct. We're grouping a string for the person's name, an Ethereum address variable, a Boolean to track if they're an active contact, and a uint256 timestamp for when the record was last updated. This is a perfect textbook example of compound state. These 4 pieces of data belong together, and from now on they will travel together as one single unit. To manage a dynamic array of these exact contacts, we follow a super simple 3-step process. Step 1, we use the push function to append a brand new contact form right to the back of our filing cabinet. Step 2, we read from the cabinet by using a zero-based index, like contacts of 0. And step 3, which is absolutely crucial for saving gas, we update records using a storage reference. By typing contact storage C equals contacts of I, we create a direct pointer to that exact folder in the cabinet. This lets us update specific fields right in place, without having to pull the whole file out, copy it, and shove it back in. Visually, your on-chain registry maps beautifully to this table. At index 0, we have our first element, which holds Ada's exact data. Index 1 holds Bino's data, which currently shows he's inactive. Index 2 holds Kara's data. If we ever need to know if Bino is active, we don't have to search through a chaotic, massive list of loose Booleans anymore. We just walk right over to folder 1 and look directly at his form. It's incredibly efficient. Section 5, Storage Mechanics and Gas. Because, bureaucracy always costs money. So you are basically paying rent for office space on the Ethereum blockchain. And the landlord? They charge per byte. The crucial point here is understanding exactly how data is stored. Fields inside a struct can be tightly packed into 32-byte slots when the data types allow for it. It's kind of like aggressively origami folding your forms so they take up way less space in the folder. Array elements, meanwhile, are stored sequentially. And those dynamic arrays, they use highly complex Kechek 256-based storage locations just to figure out where their endless folders are kept in the vast warehouse of the blockchain. You have to account for these mechanics for sure, because messy storage leads to super high gas fees for your users. Section 6, Summary and Next Steps. Let's master this mental model. If you take away literally only one thing from this explainer, it should be this golden rule. Model state around access patterns rather than the conceptual object alone. What does that actually mean? Well, it means you shouldn't just create a struct because it feels right aesthetically. You must always decide between structs and arrays based on how you and your contract are actually going to read, write, and look up the data. Think about the physical actions you take in that office space. Let's run through our summary rules to build your decision matrix. If you're doing whole record edits, use a standalone struct. If you need ordered lists or history, go with an array. Always remember that field packing impacts your gas efficiency. Also, deleting from an array, it's really tricky. It requires shifting elements or swapping them around, which costs gas and destroys your sequence order. And finally, if you need fast key-based lookups, like, say, finding a user by their wallet address, an array is just too slow. For that, you'll need mappings, which we will cover very soon. So, ask yourself, are you ready to explicitly define and initialize these records? Now that you've got a grip on the fundamental bureaucracy of smart contracts, the forms, the folders, and the filing cabinets, you are perfectly positioned to put these concepts into real executable code. In our next lesson, defining and initializing structs, we're really going to get our hands dirty. We'll be writing concrete declarations, so I highly recommend you review your primitive defaults before jumping in. Thank you so much for joining me for this Forge College Explainer. We absolutely love making these complex Web3 topics as simple and approachable as possible. To dive deeper into Solidity, actually interact with the code, and continue your Web3 journey, be sure to visit us at forge.college. But before you go, think about this for a second. Arrays are fantastic for filing, right? But what happens when your registry gets to, 1 million users? Searching an array one by one just to find a single record would literally cost a fortune in gas. So how do we instantly find one specific file in a massive million-folder warehouse? We are going to solve that exact mystery when we tackle mappings. I'll see you in the next lesson.